Welcome to ChristiTutionalist Politics podcast, aka CTP, in association with thelibertybeacon.com. And I am your host, Joseph M. Leonard, and that's Lenard. CTP is your no muss, no fuss, just me, you, and occasional guest type podcast. I really appreciate you tuning in. As Graham Norton would say, let's get on with the show. Hello, everybody. First things first. I've got to warn, I apologize. The audio of this episode is going to be different. I don't know, maybe some of you might think it's better. Some think it's worse, but it is indeed definitely different. Having an issue with the microphone. Don't know what the deal is. Got to try to figure it out after this. So I've switched over to the system microphone in the HD camera instead of the headset. So we'll see how it goes. This show about neighborliness. But before we get into neighborliness and why, well, if you've not heard Tim Walz bastardize the Bible and talk about one person's socialism is another person's neighborliness, I've just paraphrased him, and that's what this is about. But indeed, before I go into that, I want to mention I just saw, before hitting record, an interview with Dennis Quaid, and he talked about being raised into Christianity, but at early part of his life, him questioning Christianity, as he called it, and I think it's a great term from Dennis Quaid, churchianity rather than Christianity. And I'm so glad I heard him say that, because indeed that's in part what this show is about. Indeed, a lot of buildings with a cross on them are about churchianity, themselves, their own existence, keeping fannies in the pews, so money's coming into the collection plate. And they don't teach, don't preach, don't speak the whole word of the Bible, Old Testament and New Testament, together collectively as the whole Bible in full context, as you've heard me say many times. And then his later return in life to indeed Christianity and a personal experience, a personal relationship with Jesus Christ, not just an attachment to a building where you go and say an occasional prayer, sing an occasional hymn, and listen to someone who often bores you and puts you to sleep. My apologies to all the great reverends, ministers, pastors, priests that indeed are out there, but there are some really bad ones too, right? You come here for truth and honesty, and I'm giving it to you. Like it or not, there it is, right? The reality. But I also want to pivot from what Dennis Quaid said about the churchianity thing. Our friend over at Wham Radio, Pastor Sean Todd of The Intersection, Sundays noon. You could go to whamradio.com and there's a listen live page there. Tune in Sundays noon to Pastor Sean Todd's The Intersection. And of course, I always tout Bruce and Phil, Abolitionist Roundtable, 9 a.m. Saturdays. Dick Cupkey Trigger Talk often crosses from guns to faith and politics at times also. And his second hour, he took over Pastor Rick's, not Your American Heritage, that's Ed's show, A Moment of Clarity. Sorry, Rick. Pastor Rick, 1 o'clock Saturdays on Wham used to be A Moment of Clarity. I was forgetting it again. Apologies, Rick. You can go to tinyurl.com/MOC archives, find archives of his old show. But Dick Cupkey, Trigger Talk, second hour, he's 11 to noon, then he's off for lunch, then he's back on Rick's old hour for Trigger Talk Part 2, 1 to 2. Followed by my friend Ed Bondarenka, Your American Heritage, from 2 to 3. Then another Ed Hoffman, Speaking of Art. And of course, Theron X, Monday Drive Time, 3 to 6 p.m., Monday through Friday. My apologize. I'm doing it again. I cannot talk again. My apologies to Theron that I don't really get a chance to listen to him much. Really, factually, honesty, right? I haven't listened to him in probably a year. I just am busy between 3 and 5, Monday through Friday, doing things. So, but his show, 3 to 5, drive time, 1600 a.m. if you're in Southeast Michigan, anywhere else in the world, whamradio.com. At any rate, I'm sure you knew that was coming, but indeed, at any rate, the point I was getting to about Pastor Sean Todd and Dennis Quaid's churchianity is indeed a lot of these churches now, as Pastor Sean says, want the peace, love, toga, robe wearing, sandal wearing, and he throws in kind of like the university hippie hacky sacker Jesus. They only want that. They want to just, let's skip over all those, tough love parts of the Bible, especially that part where Jesus called some vipers, snakes, false guides, some of that nice tough love stuff. We don't want the tough love. We just don't want the, let's give each other a hug and pretend everything is perfect. That's not the whole Bible. That is churchianity, as Dennis Quaid rightfully said, and the hippie hacky sack Jesus that most want now, as Pastor Sean Todd says. Okay, indeed, here it comes again. You ready? You know it's coming. At any rate, now 10 minutes in, 10 minutes-ish, neighborliness. Good thing I made notes. Oh, you can see the yellow post-it if you're looking BitChute Brady on Rumble and YouTube behind the scenes. The yellow post-it note is not working with the green screen. Oh, you can see it on and off the notes. Good thing I took notes because this is actually the second recording of this show. I had recorded it and I went to put all the video blocks together, the show intro, the main segment, the show outro, the please like, share, and subscribe, parrot bag piece, right? But please like, share, and subscribe. I hate them. Every YouTube video, like, share, subscribe, like, share, subscribe. I hate it, but I gotta do it now too. The only way we make this show grow is if you like, share, subscribe. At any rate, what am I up to, 4 or 5 of those now? If this is your first show, it's an ongoing running gag that I say at any rate as a segue all the time. So for the benefit of the transcript and any new listeners or behind the scene video viewers, now you're in on the inside joke and why I purposefully keep saying that. But yeah, good thing I took notes, because when I went to put all the blocks together, I had a 20-minute video block, 0 sound. It's like, what happened? I don't know. And like today, the mic ain't working right. I test it before every show to make sure, and test. I get nothing back. Or I get a garbled 1 test of the 3 tests. But anyway, and indeed, at any rate, that's behind the scenes stuff. Nothing important for you. Thank God, indeed. Figured out what was going on. Got a microphone that will work. So yes, it will sound different. But Tim Walz, one person's socialism is another man's neighborliness. Wrong answer. Wrong answer. I should go to my notes, right? Cue the Mr. Rogers theme, right? Won't you be my neighbor? Well, Tim, I don't want you anywhere in my neighborhood. I don't want you in my city, not even my state of Michigan, because you're a bad neighbor. You don't get it. That's not neighborliness. Wanting to steal from your actual next door neighbor to give to somebody something 3, 5, 10 states over to try to buy their vote is not neighborliness. That's not community, which is biblical. Community, you probably heard me say it before. Let me write my note here. Cross off my notes. The Waltz quote, yeah. Cue Mr. Rogers, yeah. I'm going into now community versus communism. Community is biblical. I'm reaching over, turning on the fan. It's still August here in Michigan. It's cooler, but still pretty warm. I'm working up a sweat already, part due to my health reasons. But again, that's another aside. So indeed, stealing from your neighbor to give to somebody to buy their vote is not neighborly. Community is biblical. It is, and watch next week for a follow-up to this, the Liberty Beacon piece for next week that correlates also as a part 2 to this will be called Charity, Grace, Neighborliness Part 2. We're talking real neighborliness, not the AWALZ version. Community, which is voluntary, which is about charity, hence next week's continuance, Charity, Grace, and Neighborliness Part 2. It's about being your brother's keeper as a personal commandment from Christ, not a dictate. We have free will. We are given choices. We are to want to be our brother's keeper and take care of widows and orphans. But as you've heard me say before, the Bible in full context, it also talks about the distinction between the unwilling versus the unable. There's a big difference there that the likes of Harris, Walsh, Schumer, Pelosi, all those on the left that are, in my opinion, I call them, no qualms doing it, fake Christians, misapplying the Bible, our personal commandment. We are to want to do these things. We are not dictated to do these things, versus leftist communism, which is indeed forced at the barrel of a gun. You are forced to give up things to give others. That's not charity. That's satanic, worldly communism. We theft, redistribution. Those are all forced things. Now, an aside, yeah, we all understand, I think, I hope, I pray, a certain amount of taxation is, of course, needed. That we are not anarchists. We are limited government. We are ChristiTutionalists. We are about biblical limited government, not anarchy where there is no government. There has to be small amounts of taxation to do those things like the cleaning and purification of water that we all know today needs to be done. We're not drinking from wells with all kinds of toxins in them. And generally, the government does that. And I think most people accept that the government for the community does that on our behalf as our choice, that they can do it, should do it far more effectively than we would via our own well. It's a collective thing that we choose to join together and engage in, like the politics of Potterville. Communism on the micro versus the macro, right? The savings and loan, your credit union, people coming together by choice, a collectivist choice. They all, as individuals, know joining together, they benefit more together, but it is, again, a choice, not forced. Now, indeed, you paying a water bill to get the water to your house is kind of, sort of, more or less forced. It is kind of more communism than community, but we accept that paying them to do that, we are all indeed better off. We all, as individuals coming together in that, gain something together. We all gain. It's not special privilege to few, special rights to few, that communism and the left, commie-fasci-soci blend, as I've said before. This isn't the 1930s where the Nazi socis later become known as fascists, like El Duce, fascists in Italy, and Franco fascists in Spain, were all in their nations fighting Moscow-backed communists. Today, they're all together. They still have their separate banners, but they work together for one commie-fasci-soci blend goals, shared goals. They want to destroy America. But us having purified water, I think we all agree, is a pretty daggone good thing, and it's for the benefit of all, not select few. Like I say on terrorstrikes.info/quotes, Animal Farm. If Orwell were alive today, I believe his Animal Farm sequel, the line would now be, some animals get more equity, aka special rights, than the other animals. That's what it's about. Special rights, special privileges, not equality of opportunity that our Constitution allows for, or grants. And again, the Constitution isn't the government granting us the rights. It's a limitation and restriction that government cannot, may not, will not, and we got to stop letting them do it, take those God-given rights from us. It's a protection of the people, not of the government, like some other republics, right? The DNC convention, democracy, democracy, democracy. We're not a democracy. We are a constitutionally limited republic. The House of Representatives, directly elected districts, but the 17th Amendment destroyed the 10th Amendment states' rights protection that the U.S. Senate was to be a body populated out of each state's legislature appointing senators, and that destroyed a check and balance. We are not a democracy, not a mobocracy, ineptocracy, kleptocracy, any of those that the left is trying to institute. We are a constitutionally limited republic. And you've heard me say before, we need to roar. No, not the Katy Perry, Helen Reddy, I Am Woman tribute, her kind of follow-up roar. I mean, restore our American republic. Okay, so I have gone through and checked off my notes that I covered in the first recording of this episode, and hopefully I remembered to write down in the notes everything I covered. I'm sure there was rabbit holes. You know me. I always go down other rabbit holes. I've done it again here. Things in this recording certainly weren't in that recording, but my concern is things that were in that recording that will now be missed in this. Also, I will have a second segment, upcoming guests. So you know my Saturday monologue drops every Saturday, but now I've got enough. I'm recording with enough guests to do an every Wednesday midweek drop with a guest. It doesn't have to be anything involved with Christianity or politics or the Constitution. Often it lands up being that way, but not every single time I outline the guests. But indeed, at any rate, throw another one of those in. Let's get to that second segment. And again, remind, please make sure you follow up next week with Charity, Grace, Neighborliness Part 2. More discussion of the distinction between biblical community and leftist, satanic, worldly, in shackles, by force communism. Big difference, Tim AWALZ. Thank you all. Take care. God bless. On to segment 2. This is a special tack-on segment for a couple of shows to let you know about some August, September, October, potentially out into November shows. If you're looking behind the scenes, you can see I've got my I Remember Never Forget 9/11 shirt on and the 9/11 background, since we're going to be talking about things that will drop over September, October, this being August when I'm recording. And Hadassah Troy will be on, and she talks about how painful experiences become the birthplace of blessings. That's her book. How does Garth Brooks, I'm getting dyslexic with his name. How does Garth Brooks' Unanswered Prayers song relate? Hope you'll tune in to find out, as well as Star Trek V, the movie. How does that relate? I hope these little teases mean you'll tune in when it drops, or depending on where this additional segment gets tacked on, may have already dropped in August, so please check it out. Another, I should say, August drop will be David Shine, holding up the note there. David Shine is the best-selling author of Bad Deal for America and The Decline of America, 100 Years of Leadership Failures. Obvious tie-in to the politics part of the ChristiTutionalist Politics podcast show. And in September, or going forward, loosely planned for September, October timeframe, M.H. Ulrich comes on, and we talk also, not another movie reference in there, but I hope you'll check in to find out how the discussion with her brings up C.S. Lewis, but Star Trek again. Right. Likely 2 episodes in a row or an episode apart. This time, Star Trek, the original series, an episode called Parallel. Spoiler alert, if you haven't seen the old series, they go to a planet and they worship the sun. They assume it's S-U-N, the sun above. But as you get to the end, you find out it is Christ having visited another planet, the Son of God on another planet, which is really kind of blows my mind, knowing that Gene Roddenberry was an atheist, that such an episode would have even been remotely allowed and considered. But, you know, I want to give him credit. There were a wide variety of topics covered by that show. So please tune in to the M.H. Ulrich episode to find out how that Star Trek episode factors in. If you recall, if you've been with me a long time, last year, 9/11, I had on my friend from Wham Radio, Your American Heritage Show, Ed Bondarenka. I plan for now that the episode again will drop a new one, not a repeat, a new one on 9/11 with Ed Bondarenka. But it is not, while we'll touch on that somber Remembrance Day, it is not a show dedicated to that. But I just thought that was a logical day time frame to have him back on, since he was on last 9/11. Leslie Hall. Now think Leslie Nielsen. By Leslie, we're talking a male here. Leslie Hall, and a great conversation with him, and we talk MLK in there, and we talk about addiction. So that's an important show. I hope you'll tune in. We need a youth perspective, so I've got a couple coming up. Christopher Armstrong Stevenson, a young man, a high schooler, will be on so that we could talk a youth perspective, a Zoomer to Boomer. I use that term advisedly. You'll see why a little later. Eddie Yuda Man, man with 2 N's though, but you know me, I can't pass the lame pun, so I call him Eddie Yuda Man, will be on. He's a Christian music singer-songwriter. I'm going to have a few of them on, so I hope you'll tune in for that. William R. Douglas, I'm holding up to the camera my notes from that. The Sum of All Our Anger, Civil War 2.0, book cover. You can see if you're looking behind the scenes. Obviously, with all that's going on, and my friend Michael Gardner, a.k.a. Savage, who wrote the book
America's political battle, a current civil war, in terms of a cold civil war. We're in a battle. We're in a civil war. It's just not shooting at each other yet. Whereas William, his book goes into the what if it turns hot over the next few years. His, like my Terror Strikes book, is historical fiction. There is some fact, some fiction that lends credence to the fact that these issues boil over, may lead to a hot civil war. Another singer-songwriter, Richard Lynch, will be on. We will be mentioning a few. Barry Gibb, Conway Twitty. Tune in to find how they factor into that episode. Christine Sposato. Hey, we're both Italiano, so we joke Italian desserts. But seriously, you've heard me talk about conservatives being censored on school campuses, and she indeed created a group, studentvoicessilence.com. So we will talk further about that. Another singer-songwriter, Robert Ross, will be on. If you don't have to like country, you shouldn't have to like country to tune in. But if you are a country fan, obviously you really want to tune in to find out how and why Freddie Fender, David Allan Coe get mentioned in the episode, as well as I lost my place. Looking, Conway Twitty again, George Jones, and Vern Gosden. He brought that name up. That was a name I hadn't heard in a long time. So please tune in for that. Robert Boog. Ever since I was in high school, we heard the rumor and conspiracy theory that William Shakespeare didn't write his stuff. I venture into that discussion with Robert Boog. James Gebhardt is on. And in Who is Babysitting Whom, we've talked about honor your mother and father, right? Who is the parent? The left wants your children to be wards of the state. This is why they hate and want to destroy Christianity. That honor your mother and father part is in the way of their turning all children of the nation into wards of the fascistic state. Remember, I've talked before, Hitlery and the warping of It Takes a Village, which is biblical, not Hitlery's It Takes the Fascistic State warped version of it. Michelle Jewsbury, if you remember, I had Trent Brock on in the past. He has a chapter in a book about survivors, hardships in life. Michelle Jewsbury has got a volume 1 out, volume 2, 3, 4 will be coming. Collections of survivors of hardships, so people know they are not alone. And indeed, there may be, hopefully is, they're not alone. There is help. There can be light at the end of the tunnel or around the corner. I mentioned Zoomers to Boomers. If you see behind the scene there, you see a little logo there, Zoomers to Boomers. Roger Landry of the Liberty Beacon Project, again, I write for thelibertybeacon.com. I am on TLB Talk. That's all part of the TLB Project. He's founder of that. He has a show with a young lady, not going to turn 18 soon, but not yet. So a young lady, hence Zoomers to Boomers. They have a show together. So again, we get that youth perspective here that's much needed. And lastly, I'm going to mention Luann Hunt, another singer-songwriter. If you're at all a Patsy Cline fan, or your parents or your grandparents were a Patsy Cline fan, you want to turn into I cannot talk. You want to tune into that show to see how Patsy Cline has factored into Luann Hunt's life. And Patsy Cline kind of lives on now through Luann Hunt. Thank you all. Just wanted to give you a brief sneak peek at coming midweek Wednesday guest appearance drops. Take care. God bless.
Thank you for having tuned in for ChristiTutionalist Politics show. If you haven't already, please check out my primary internationally available book, Terror Strikes, coming soon to a city near you. Available anywhere books are sold. If you have locally run bookstores still near you, they can order it for you, or autographed copies are available online direct from me via terrorstrikes.info/shop. Be sure to check out more about today's discussion at thelibertybeacon.com, where my articles drop every Saturday. And let me remind, over time, the fancy high production items will come. But for now, for starters, it's just you as a very appreciated listener by me. All substance, no fluff. No fancy high production intro or inserts, at least yet, just straight to key discussion points. A show that looks at a variety of topics, mostly politics, through a Christian U.S. constitutionalist lens. So again, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Take care. God bless. Like and subscribe to ChristiTutionalist Politics podcast and share episodes. We need your help to grow the show.